On February 5th of this year, we lost a true icon, a true legend. We tragically lost Toby Keith, one of the greatest to do it on the stage and one to do it the greatest off the stage. And today, the story that we are going to share with you guys comes from Toby Keith's friend Colt Ford, who was recently on the 10 Year Town podcast with host Troy Cartwright, where he was asked, is there something that you would like for people to know about Toby Keith that they may not know? And the story that Colt Ford had to share was so powerful, very emotional, very moving, and it just really solidifies the legendary status of who Toby Keith was as a man, as we all truly knew and understood him to be. You know, we're now in the month of April, and it's still really hard to even consider or to even come to terms with the fact that Toby Keith is no longer with us. And we got one of his last recordings, if not the last recording he's ever done, on Hardy's newest Hicks tape, the Diff tape, where they pay tribute to Joe Diffie, who we lost a couple of years ago. Toby Keith was featured on that album alongside Luke Combs, where the two of them sang The Ships That Don't Come In, a major hit for Joe Diffie. And if you haven't heard it yet, if you go and listen to it, just be prepared, because once the song starts, Toby is the first to sing on that song, and it will immediately grab your attention. And there is a certain type of emotional feeling that will overwhelm you when you hear Toby Keith on that recording, knowing as well that it's his last recording that he gave us. But we have so much to go over today, because I think it's really important to share this story from Colt Ford to everyone out there, because it is something that I think everyone should know about Toby Keith if they hadn't known about him already. Just how much of an impact, we know he made on the music business, right? But he was making such an impact outside of his job, outside of his work, in his home state of Oklahoma, that is so awe-inspiring. I'll be honest as well, when I was putting this story together to present to you guys today, it definitely grabbed a hold of me. And, I was emotional as I was getting this ready, and I would hope that you would feel the same as we go through this. So let's go ahead and get into what it is Colt Ford believes everyone should know about Toby Keith if you do not know about it already. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story. So first, before we dive into what Colt Ford had to say, let's give a little bit of context to what he is going to be speaking about. And I want to focus your attention on the OK Kids Chorale, which was founded by the Toby Keith Foundation. And just several weeks ago, the OK Kids Chorale celebrated their 10-year anniversary. You can see this Instagram post that was shared to Toby Keith's account with the caption, 10 years ago today, the Toby Keith Foundation OK Kids Chorale opened its doors to children battling cancer and their families, providing them a cost-free home during treatment. Please consider a donation to the foundation. There had always been many donations that would come into this. Toby Keith would even hold a golf classic, if you will, where they have raised thousands of dollars over the years. This was a project that Toby Keith was extremely passionate about. Now I'd like to turn your attention to this about page that you see here of the OK Kids Chorale. And we're just going to talk about how just wonderful this is, the magnitude of what this would mean to someone who would need to reach out for these resources, these services that Toby Keith were offering. It's simply incredible. So their about page reads, getting the right care sometimes means cancer patients must travel away from home, often to a cancer treatment facility in another city. This puts a financial and emotional toll on the families, not to mention the physical toll it takes on their child. OK Kids Chorale helps make life a little easier for children with cancer by providing a safe, convenient, and hopeful place for families to connect with each other and focus on the well-being of their child. OK Kids Chorale provides daytime and overnight lodging for pediatric patients and their families. The state-of-the-art facilities at OK Kids Chorale are designed to create a relaxing haven for the entire family. And I mean, when you look at the amenities of what this foundation provides to the families and the pediatric patients, it's just unbelievable. 12 private suites, each sleeps up to 5 people, 4 daytime rooms, gourmet kitchen, indoor and outdoor dining areas, comfortable living areas, family resource room, a laundry room. Then you have all of the feature areas targeting the specific needs of children with cancer. You have a neutropenic wing for children with weakened immune systems, modular suites with privacy doors, refrigerators in each suite, movie theater, game room and teen area, indoor and outdoor play areas, relaxation gardens and water feature, a reflection room. And now let's just look at some of the photos that they share on their gallery here of this state-of-the-art facility. I mean, it just looks magnificent. The amenity, it looks very clean. It's just such a nice place to be able to offer this to folks who need it. The common and living area spaces look to be very large. Bedrooms and the rooms themselves look to be very comfortable. Plenty of room to not feel as though you are crammed in a space as you're sharing it with, multiple other families. And the layout of this is so beautiful. I mean, just look at this as we scroll. It looks like there's even a theater, a movie room there. Of course, they have outside activities. You got the fire pit. And you can see it's not only just a place to stay, but there is activities that go on. People are involved here, and they truly take care of the families and the patients and make them get the most feel-at-home experience that they can give them. So now that we got a bit of a context of what the OK Corral is and what it's all about, now we're going to get into what Colt Ford had to share about Toby Keith and what most people probably don't know about him. Now, a lot of us probably have heard of the Toby Keith Foundation, the OK Kids Corral. We have seen that there's been a lot of money raised, the golf classic that I mentioned to you earlier that he held annually. But the one thing that stands out is Toby Keith was coming out of his own pocket for this. A large sum of money he would share out of his pocket to ensure that this was something that did not go under, things were taken care of, and the amenities and the special services that were offered continued to be met. And this man was doing it out of his own pocket, and that speaks volumes of who Toby Keith was as a person. Colt Ford again did make a recent appearance on the 10-Year Town podcast with host Troy Cartwright, where he was asked if there was anything he wanted to share about Toby Keith that many of us may not know about him. Colt Ford said, "Toby's OK Corral in Oklahoma City is like a 20 to 30 room private hospital that's exactly like St. Jude's, that he puts about $20 million out of his own pocket to run. There's a lot of guys doing stuff. You ain't doing that. But like out of his pocket. I know people go out and raise money, but you ain't stroking a $20 million check out of your own pocket. First of all, very few can stroke that check." Colt Ford then goes into a very powerful, moving, and just emotional story that he shared with Toby Keith on a day that he accompanied his buddy there at the OK Kids Corral, and they had an encounter with one of the families on the property. Colt Ford said, "But second of all, I went with him one day. I mean, I'm talking about there is kids in quarantine. I mean, like these parents pay for nothing. It is like the Ritz-Carlton. Everything is provided for 24 hours a day. And he paid for all this shit himself, man. Like, that's crazy." And we were walking out, and this guy came running out of the place we were leaving. We were getting in the truck. We then heard, Mr. Keith. You look at this guy and you go, tough life, hard life, like oil rig, not money. And this dude just broke down crying and said, like, if it wasn't for you, my son. Colt Ford continues to fight back his tears as he added, at this moment, you're like, wow, this is a big deal. And for a guy like that to just be that emotional and a man to be that humble and that grateful is like, wow, I'd like to be able to do something like that. He's a legend. Like for real. This post on Instagram is still one of the hardest posts that I've looked at in recent years as, we got this news that Toby Keith passed. And I truly believe that there's never going to be another one like Toby Keith. And even though this honor is coming after his passing, him getting into the Country Music Hall of Fame this year is something that has to be done. There's no question that Toby Keith was already a Hall of Famer. The guy has just had hits after hits, and he has brought something different to the genre. He was very innovative. He was very cheeky. There's a lot of things that just made Toby Keith. And this guy has always been a Hall of Famer in my mind. Something to share. My very first concert was Billy Ray Cyrus was headlining. Toby Keith opened up for Billy Ray. It was in the year, I believe, of 1995. was the year that this concert went down. Very first concert. So I guess you could say my very first show was technically Toby Keith, who opened for Billy Ray that night. But, you know, I, like many of you, grew up on Toby Keith. He has been a large part of my life, a large part of my passion for country music. And it's still just, no matter how many times we have a conversation about him or we share stories about him, it just gets tougher and tougher, you know, to get through and to talk about. Not because Toby Keith is tough to talk about, but just the amount of emotions that overcome myself and many others when they talk about him. The magnitude of it is infinite. But what a story from Colt Ford. You know, as we look at the OK Kids Corral, such a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to provide. The Toby Keith Foundation, a 10 out of 10 foundation. Again, he was very passionate about it. As we know, Toby also lost his life after his long and courageous battle with stomach cancer. But, you know, this was always a project that Toby Keith had his hands on. And again, putting out a large sum of money out of his own pocket to ensure that these children and these families had what they needed. So we wanted to share that with you guys today. Such a great story there shared by Colt Ford, who is a good friend of Mr. Toby Keith. That's your latest update here from Country Cast. If you have not, hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss out on any breaking news and updates.